And as I walked down the road, I saw 2 cars drive past me and I knew instantly, I was like, something's happened to Lee.
How did you tell the kids?
How do you tell a 5-year-old this? Because I literally just, shattered his world. He knew that life was never, ever going to be the same.
Prince Harry interviewing Nikki Scott about the moment she discovered her husband, Corporal Lee Scott, had been killed on active service in Afghanistan, and the pain of explaining his death to their 5-year-old son. Scotty served with the 2nd Royal Tank Regiment and was just 26 when he died in 2009, leaving Nikki with Kai and 7-month-old Brooke. Each year, more than 2,000 children and young people experience the loss of a military parent. And as Nikki tried to pick up the pieces for her young family, she quickly realised there was little or no support for those whose parents have been lost in the armed forces. So, out of her own grief and heartbreaking journey, she founded Scotty's Little Soldiers. The charity is dedicated to helping military children and young people cope with the death of a parent in any circumstance, who served in the Army, Navy or Air Force. Prince Harry was a helicopter pilot in the Army. He carried out 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan and is proud as Duke of Sussex to be Scotty's global ambassador.
What you've done is incredible. It is truly inspirational. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but it is. And to see the difference in the kids there, especially some of the ones that I've met previously in 2017, they're different people. You can see that they are still processing their grief, but this community of support for them is everything.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Nikki, it's really lovely to meet you. I'm guessing that Scotty's Little Soldiers couldn't really have a better ambassador than Prince Harry.
No, it's great to have Prince Harry on board. He obviously, like you said, he served in the military, but he was also bereaved as a young child. So he really resonates with our members and they love talking to him about bereavement and the forces. So there's a real strong connection there. So yeah, he's a great ambassador.
He's hands-on as well, isn't he, Nikki? Because he meets the people that you help.
Yeah, he's obviously in America, so whenever he can come to the UK, he will then get in touch with us and we normally set something up. So he's definitely met quite a few of our young people, but he'll also be on Zoom calls and every month we send him an update and then every quarter some of the team will meet with him. So he's very hands-on and you also get access to his team as well. So it's a big support, not just in the limelight that everyone sees. There's also a lot that happens behind the scenes of guidance and advice and support as well, which is, it's been a really, really great thing. And he's always been supportive of Scotty's even before becoming an ambassador. So he's often sent letters, sent videos to the children. So to now have it all official has been, it's been a really good journey, actually.
How did you get to know him in the first place and get him as your ambassador?
I first met him, I think it was 2018. And so Prince Harry, Prince William and Kate, they threw a party for bereaved military children at Buckingham Palace called Party at the Palace. And Scotty's were involved helping the MOD to find the bereaved families. So we invited all of the families that we support. And we were also invited to have a stand there so that we could support families. And actually a lot of families that didn't know about Scotty's were there at the event as well. So it was really great to be there and raise awareness for the charity. So that was when I first met Prince Harry. There's a really corny photo of me looking like I'm meeting some god as well. It's like really not flattering, but it's a lovely memory to have.
You know, I'm now going to ask you for that photograph.
I'll stitch myself up. No, it's just it's an honour, to know that the royals, that Prince Harry knew about us and not just knew about us, but was actually really interested and asked questions and wanted to know more. And from that point, kept in touch with us. And then when he married Meghan, I got a phone call to ask if we would mind if we were one of the 7 charities selected to receive donations from their wedding. And I thought it was complete it was like 5 o'clock as well. I was just leaving the office. And when you're like, oh no, who's this? But you always think, oh, it might be a millionaire, like you got to answer that phone even if it's 5 o'clock. And it was someone that worked with Prince Harry basically asking. So it was quite surreal. Because up until that point, it was just little touch points. But clearly, it was a massive pat on the back for the team.
I got really choked up through some of the interview with him. I think I got choked up because what was really clear was that he'd really put you at your ease and that he absolutely understood your loss. He lost his mother, Princess Diana, when I think he was only 12, and understands the military. And he just seemed to really get the journey that Lee's death had put you on.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it's the same when he speaks to any of the young people as well. There's been a time where they have quite a deep, open conversations. They're very honest. And so is he with them about his bereavement. And you can see it's really special to watch that almost like bond happening. And then all the members after are just buzzing because they're just like, Prince Harry understands and he knows us and he's interested. And yeah, so it's huge in so many ways to have his support because the credibility, it helps raise the charity's profile, helps us find new members. Yeah.
And you gave him a big hug at the end, didn't you? I loved that moment when you said, I feel like I need to give you a hug.
Yeah, I feel like you do that with anyone. It's a bit like when a veteran meets another veteran. There's just a connection. I don't know, you just know, don't you? And it's the same when I meet another widow, especially a military widow. You just got this understanding. And it's the same with our young people. When they meet each other, it's like an instant connection. And I just think you feel that. I get it when I meet people that served with Lee as well, that I haven't seen for a long time, or I've never met them, but they served with Lee on a tour, or there's just an instant connection. So I felt very relaxed. Yeah, he puts you at ease.
Before we talk about the incredible work that Scotty's Little Soldiers does, tell us a bit about Lee, or Scotty, as I think lots of his comrades and friends called him.
So yeah, Scotty, he was known in the army. And then in Civvy Street, he was known as Lee. So I met Lee, we were really young. I think I was just 18 and I was working in a bar and he used to come in because he knew someone I was working with. So we grew up in nearby towns and he was always the cheeky chappy, slightly annoying. I don't like to put him too high on a pedestal. He did have his annoying moments, would wind people up, quite a joker. But it definitely, when he joined the army, he really matured and it was something he'd always wanted to do and he was very serious about it. I think he really felt like he had a purpose. That's what it came across, like he felt like he'd found what he wanted to do. He was helping, he had a purpose, a drive. And I think, the army definitely made him grow up. When I look back, I always remember when we were having the inquest and the coroner said, at the end of it, he said, every time I asked someone who took the stand to tell me a bit about Lee, a big smile came on their face. And I just always remember that because I'm like, it's very true. Even in that moment when it was really hard, very emotional, still when they were asked about Lee, that everyone would smile. And I think that says what you'd know if he was in the room, put it that way. He was a bit of a show off as well. I see a lot of him in Brooke.
Do you?
Yeah, she's so confident, so loving and caring, but doesn't care. She'll dance in a room if she wants to dance and everyone's looking, doesn't care. That is completely Lee. That's not me. So yeah, which I love. I love that she's got those traits. Yeah.
That's really, really special. And I'm guessing you've also told her that she's got those traits, which is a lovely thing to tell her too.
Yeah, I think it's bittersweet for her. She finds it hard. It's a bit like when I look at her and I see those moments of Lee in her, I tell her because I know she loves it, but also I wish she was here to see this, or what would you have been like together, or So
she was only 7 months as well.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing at 7 months she won't have memories of Lee, will she?
And that's been a struggle as she's got older. I think people assume because she was a baby, doesn't remember, so it's probably not as painful for her as she grows up. But and I even thought that. I thought Kai was the one that it would be really tough for, being 5, but it's so interesting. Well, I've learned a lot. Every child's different. Everyone grieves differently. And for her, I think the not knowing and not having her own memories has been the biggest struggle, because she's just going off what other people have told her, but she physically cannot and she gets angry about it. Even now, she still gets really like, why can't I remember? Like, just want to remember. And he recorded a storybook CD before he went away. So I can't remember how old she was, but at one point I said, do you want to hear Dad's voice? I've got him reading you a story. And it was really emotional. I didn't quite realise how emotional. Don't know why I wouldn't, but just the impact that she was like, I've never, ever heard his voice before.
It's hard for you, Nikki, because it's something that you can't really bring back for her. As mums, we do everything we can for our children. And while you can play her his voice and you can show her photographs, that I can understand how difficult that must be and frustrating for her, that she just can't draw on a memory.
No, and you want to fix it as a mum, don't you? It's the same as when it first happened, and I witnessed Kai changing and the effects it had. There's nothing I can do to make this better. And that is horrible. You can hug them, you can put a plaster on stuff, but you cannot change this or make this better. And I think that over the years for Brooke, that is really hard, because you just physically can't. You have to just say, Brooke, please don't beat yourself up. You're never going to remember, but we can tell you stuff, we can show you stuff, we can use as much as we can to help you piece the bits of the puzzle together. And I think that's why I've always been quite honest with them. And as they've grown up, they've asked different questions. You never tell them once Dad's died. You have to repeat it as they get older, because they can't remember when you did tell them, or they've got a different question. And Brooke's questions, as she's got older, have got really tough. But I try and be as honest as I can, because I just think that's how she's going to build the picture of Lee and what he was like and what happened.
You've been on such a difficult journey, Nikki, and I suppose that journey just is always ongoing as the children grow. How did you feel about Lee going to Afghanistan? He loved life in the Tank Regiment and was feeling fulfilled in his job. But did you ever chat before about the risks and the what ifs, or did he just go off confidently and you kind of accept that that's what he did for a living?
Yeah, I think so. I always remember when we were getting married and one of my friends said, or we were married, and she was saying, I don't know how you could marry a soldier. And I used to be like, but you can't help who you fall in love with. And like, that's what he loves. I'm never going to tell him not to do it, because it's something that he absolutely loves. And I was so proud of, like I am now, like really proud of the military and the guys that do what they do, and the girls, of course. But I think back then, it's happening, it's going to happen. That's what all the training is for beforehand. But I honestly think I was quite naive. I don't know whether that was a self-protection thing, if I don't really want to think about this. And Lee had done tours of Kosovo and Iraq before, but I wasn't living in a military garrison at those points. So it felt really different. And I think it was, for both of us, well, it might have been different for Lee, but he didn't ever let on. For both of us, it was around, he's going to be away for 6 months. And Brooke was so little, and he was such a big dad, like with Kai, they were best buddies. It was more the fact of, oh my God, 6 months, that's ages. But we just used to be like, you'll be back for Christmas. That's what we need to hold on to. But yeah, I think it was the time away, and I didn't really I wouldn't, when he first went, I wouldn't have anything on to do with it. I just didn't want to know, pretended he wasn't there for as long as I could, and then reality hit in when things started to happen.
If it's not too hard a question, Nikki, can I ask what happened to Lee? Did they come under attack out there?
Yeah, so I'll obviously share some stuff. There's some stuff that I'll just always keep to myself,
of course,
and the details that I wouldn't want to share and then someone listen to and not know. So, but I'm always really open. Yeah, so it was the 10th of July and Lee was out, and he was in a Viking, so they weren't out there on tanks. So it was a different military armoured vehicle, and he was in the front vehicle. And as far as I know, Lee had asked the infantry in the back to use the metal detectors. That's totally the wrong military term. But he sensed that something wasn't right. After a period of time, he said, no, it's all good, come back in. And then literally went a little bit further, and there was an IED in the road, and there was a big explosion, and he was killed, and his driver was badly injured, as well as a few other people. And I know from his friends that the attack then went on for a further 6 hours. I probably know more than what I would have known if Lee had survived and come back, because I think that the lads were just incredible with me and answered questions and spoke to me. But I feel for them, because I just think I cannot imagine that happening to your friend, just that carnage and chaos, and then you've got to carry on fighting for a further 6 hours. It's just insane what the military do. But yeah, so it was really tough. It was so surreal, because for the lead up, so about 10 days before Lee was killed, one of his troop was killed. And that was probably when I got a call from welfare to say that Lee had been involved in an incident but was okay, but there had been a fatality within the troop. And I think that was when it hit home. I was like, okay, this is what is going on. This is where he is. And I think the reality checked in within the wives and the girlfriends on the camp. And after that, me and my friend Laura were just stuck together like glue. We both had young children, both had husbands out there, and we would just spend all our time together. And there was always a day where one of us felt a bit down and we'd have to pick the other one up. And it was so weird that day was my day of feeling really, really low. And I hadn't spoke to Lee for 5 days because there'd been a death every single day. The phone lines have all kept down. So I was just like, I haven't spoke to him for 5 days, feeling really flat. I just don't feel right. And I remember Laura saying, he'll phone tonight. It'll be tonight. They'll phone tonight. And then literally walking back from that walk is when I saw 2 cars drive down my road, and I just knew, well, I thought Lee had been hurt. I was just instantly, I was crying walking down the street towards the cars in my house because I knew, I was like, Lee's been hurt, Lee's been hurt. And that's when I got told. So yeah, just you never ever think, even when you serve in the military, that it's going to be your family and your loved ones.
And when all these brave men and women go out and fight on behalf of the country, it's easy to forget that there are battles back at home because wives, girlfriends, families, partners who are trying to deal with that. There was a lot going on, wasn't there? Back at base for you, it's not just about the personnel that are out there.
Yeah, I don't think they get the credit that they should, what they've been through. And back then, I just knew Lee's friends within his regiment. But since the charity and since Lee's death, I've met so many serving personnel and veterans now. And I'm so humbled by anyone that served, because I don't think people realise quite what they do and why they do it. And it takes a special person to do that job. But yeah, you're right. Back home, it's almost like the not knowing is the worst part. Like I remember just chatting and having this anxiety. I'd lay in bed and not be able to sleep and just not be able to eat. And you'd wind yourself up because you're thinking, I wonder what he's doing. I wonder where he is. He could be tucked up asleep on Camp Bastion, like loving life, playing cards, eating a bit of pizza. I don't think it was all like that. But for all I knew, he could be fine. But it's the not knowing, and you literally... it's hard. You're on your own again with the kids and you're trying to answer Kai's question and trying to keep everything ticking over and positive. But really, you're just, rowing.
Counting the days probably until hopefully they return. I know you told Prince Harry that you had a sixth sense really when you saw those cars pulling up at your house. How difficult was it, Nikki, to take in the news and what the military personnel were trying to explain to you?
I don't even, to be honest, some of it is a complete blank. Like there's parts that I'm like, I don't even think I can remember. Like I can remember standing in the lounge 100% talking to them. But I just went into almost like like the adrenaline just hit. The very first thing I said is, you've got the wrong Scott. There's another Scott in the troop. There's a trooper Scott. And they just told me firmly again. But it's like, it doesn't sink in because I've almost been dreaming that nightmare for the past few days since Trooper Hammond was killed, that I was like, I can't believe it. Is this even real? Like, I can't get my head around it. And then I went into panic mode because I was actually on my way to pick up Kai from school. So I went into that, I've got to go and get Kai from school. And they were like, we'll ring the school. We'll get that sorted. And then they were saying, is there anyone that can pick him up? And I was like, well, I can ring my friends, but they've all got husbands out there. Was anyone else hurt? And they're like, we can't tell you any. The information was very straight. You didn't get told a lot of information. It took a while for it to come back down the chain, I guess. In the end, I think the head teacher brought Kai to the house. And then he went to my friend's house. I can't even remember how all those arrangements got made, but I do remember Kai walking in and he was in his green little school jumper and he'd made a spider at school. And he wanted to show me a spider. And I just remember that was when I think I just had a bit of a like, what the hell am I going to do? How the hell do I tell you? And then I can't remember. The next thing I know, all the family were in my house. People had travelled because my family were in Norfolk. So they were 4 hours away. And it was a Friday. And I kept hearing like, the M25. You know, when you just have all these weird memories. And I just remember wanting my family so badly. And then the next thing I know, Kai had come back in the evening and I was telling him quietly on his bed. So it's just...
You told him that day, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Oh, I can't even imagine, Nikki, how hard that was. But remember you saying when I watched your Harry interview that you had to be very clear and you had to really be very honest with him about his dad not coming home. How did you explain it to him? 5 is such a young age, and you know as a mum that his little world's about to be shattered like yours, but that must have been so difficult for you. How did you do it?
Yeah, and I feel like now, if I had all the knowledge that I know now, I probably would have done things slightly differently. But like I say to any parent, there is no wrong or right way. At the time, we want to protect our kids and love our kids. So you try and make it as well. There is no easy way to say that. He wasn't diagnosed at the time, but was going through assessments, and we knew that probably had autism. You need to be really straight and clear with Kai, even at a young age of 5. So I knew in my head that I was like, I need to not give him any false hope. I just need to tell him so it's really clear that he won't ever see him again. And I just sat him down on the bed and I just said, do you remember where Daddy is? And he said, yes, Afghan. And I said, I'm really sorry, but Daddy's been hurt. Because Kai used to muck about with Lee and say goodies and baddies. So I just did like the baddies hurt Daddy and he died and he's gone to heaven and we won't ever see Daddy again. Like, it sounded so cold. I was crying at the time and it sounded really cold. And then I just remember thinking after I'd had the conversation, Kai had never experienced anyone dying before. So it wasn't until a couple of days later, he was with my friend and he said, what's heaven? And I thought, God, it didn't even occur to me that he wouldn't even know what I was talking about. So I don't think he really responded, or I think it took a long time for Kai to even, well, same as me, to be honest, to even accept what was happening and what the reality was really.
And you kept yourself busy in the days and weeks afterwards. When did you really realise, Nikki, that there was little or perhaps no support out there in terms of you as a mum and very young children trying to come to terms with it all?
I think in the really early days, even when the funeral was being planned and even with repatriation, I always instantly, from the moment I was told and Kai walked in that room, it was all about, for me as a mum, and maybe I was trying to help my grief a bit, but I was so focused on how am I going to help Kai? And even back then, I wasn't even really thinking about Brooke because my mum was there. People were fussing over Brooke. She didn't know what was going on, although I now know that babies pick up on everything and can be affected. But yeah, I remember just being like, everything was about Kai and my focus. And I do remember some really early conversations where I was very aware that Kai's in the room and I don't want this conversation while Kai's in the room. And I was just thinking, God, no one is asking me about Kai. And my visiting officer was amazing. And I remember him giving me a letter from the Army Widows Association. And I remember it being so personal and a lovely letter. But again, it was like, well, that's interesting because no one's saying anything about the children. No one's asked about Kai. Again, there's this group for me. And I guess back then, though, you're not in the headspace of even thinking, oh, I want to join a group or anything like that. But it was kind of in my head. And then my cousin, I'm laughing because she was adamant that I was going on holiday with her. And I talk about this quite a lot. And I always think, God, it sounds so corny, but going on a holiday completely changed our lives, I think. And she nagged me to go on this holiday. And I remember saying to her, like, the thought of happy families by a porn holiday is not what I need. And even going to the airport with 2 little kids on my own is not what I need. Then it kicks into, what are people going to say? They're going to think I've forgot. Like, if I'm not sad all the time, people are going to think I'm over Lee and all those silly things that now I think that we worry about, that we really shouldn't worry about. Anyway, she made me go on this holiday. It was about 9 months after. And that was the holiday where Kai just relaxed. I guess I relaxed, not magically all better at all. But Kai was playing in the pool with his cousins and really laughing, really smiling. And I had a bit of an emotional moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like, I have not seen Kai. I've not heard Kai laugh like that. Lee would be absolutely going mental at me. We have been living in a very dark place. And then as the holiday went on, I started to sit there and think, I wonder how many other children like Kai and Brooke, that their parent has died while serving or has served and died. And then I started to just question those thoughts again from the early days of why has no one been in touch? I don't understand. So I went back and said to my brother, Stuart, and some friends and family, oh, I've had this idea, like I'm going to start a charity, and I've done some research. I can't find anything that really helps bereaved military families have a break. And so I think since then I've not stopped, if I'm completely honest with myself. That is how I've survived 15 years of just constantly on the go and thinking, how can I make this situation better and keep Lee's memory alive? Because to me, I was like, Lee was 26. He wasn't done. They're so young. I can't just say, oh, that's it then. For me, it was also a purpose of, this is how we keep Lee's name alive. This is how people remember him. And there was just so much need for it. I never, ever thought when I first started we'd be where we are today, and how much need there is for bereaved military children is, I still get shocked today at new situations that we hear about.
It was born out of grief and a lack of anyone really coming to your rescue through these awful times as you navigated such sad times. But it really has become your world, hasn't it, Nikki? Seeing these youngsters you help not just cope, but live and smile and laugh again.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. This is a hard world we live in, and you're constantly hearing painful stories that you think is just horrible to think families are going through the situations. And every time you receive a new membership form, you think this family's at the start of this journey. But on the upside, when you see the impact you have and you hear the stories about how Scotty's have supported a child or spoken to a school, and as actually that child was on the verge of being expelled because the school didn't understand what was going on at home, and then you can hold their hand and fight their corner and just make sure they're being heard. Or you send a family on a break, exactly what me and Kai and Brooke had, and it makes such a difference. You reconnect and you build new memories, and you help the children realise it's all right to smile. Mum or dad would want me to still live. There's so many incredible things we listen to from the team about the young people, and it just makes me so proud, because they're incredible, like all of them. Just, to see them come through and thrive. And then when you hit those tough times, because there's always going to be those times when things will be okay, you're coping, and then boom, something happens at school, or someone says something, or it's Remembrance Day, or there's an anniversary, or there's an advert and it was for dad's favourite perfume, or there's always those moments. And I love the fact that they can just ring a Scotty friend, or they can ring the team, or they can look on the website, or they receive a card and a gift to say, we're here for you if you need us.
Do you remember any of those touch points for Brooke or for Kai when they were at school, when perhaps either classmates or teachers, or there was something being taught at school that triggered perhaps their feelings of sadness?
I think when they're younger, the ones I can think of is Father's Day. Even Mother's Day to a point, it would be Daddy that normally goes and buys the gift, and then who's going to go and buy the gift for Mummy? But Father's Day especially, and I always remember even Brooke's nursery school, we were still living in Tidworth, so still on a garrison. So the nursery school she went to, I'm still in touch with them now because they do stuff for Scotty's, we work with them, but they would ring me. So this is a really proactive, good example. They would ring me and say, for Father's Day, would you like us to still make a card with Brooke? Or would you like us to do something else with Brooke? And I think that is the key, communication, giving them choices. And for us, it was, no, would you please still make a Father's Day card? And Brooke will go and put it on the grave or keep it or do whatever she wants. But I think as they get older, Brooke's doing her GCSEs at the moment. And we've had quite a journey last year when she picked her options, and some of the lesson topics in English, it was all war and conflict. So it's just...
Oh, it's war and conflict poetry, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah.
Our son's doing his GCSEs, and of course, that's the poetry section this year, isn't it?
Yeah. And we hear this so much where the children are just walking into class, and Brooke, I know she won't mind me saying, she sits on her council and she talks about this quite a lot. So, but she walked into a classroom and Lola played a video of a soldier talking about his experience in Afghanistan. And there was a poem being read, and there were scenes of Afghanistan. And she said, I sat there thinking, well, that could be the explosion my dad was in. And then she said, you can feel the whole class looking at you because they all know that your dad was killed in Afghanistan. And then she said, but you don't want to leave because you're like, this is my GCSEs. I've got to sit through this. But it got to the point where she's like, I cannot go to school every day and do those lessons. Like, it is really having a negative effect on me. So it's a massive piece of work that Scotty's are working on at the minute. Actually, we've been working on it the last year and we're doing some really good progress, but it's just trying to help teachers to pre-warn the children or ask them the options. And even with the examples, it's not just military experiences, even death by suicide. And there's exam questions coming up that are talking about it. So it's it's really quite hard on the young.
And they're things that you just never think about. You've been on such a steep learning curve yourself. And I think what's extraordinary about your story, Nikki, is that you've been on this steep learning curve. You're still on it, I'm sure, as every day goes by there, and the children. It's not all about the children, it's about you as well. But every day that goes by, you're all three of you facing new thoughts and new challenges, because things come out of the blue, don't they? When I'm sure you have moments that you just weren't expecting, where suddenly memories gush back. But I do think it's wonderful that out of all that, you really helping others, because you've helped, I think, am I right in saying, not far off 1,000 military children so far? Is that right?
Yeah, it's around the 740, I think, at the moment, which is amazing to think of. All those children have had support from Scotty's, but there is also, like you said at the start, at the beginning, so many more that don't even know about Scotty's yet that we could be helping, and that hurts to think they could be in some of these situations that we see and they don't have the support of Scotty's, or they think people have forgotten them. So many of them feel isolated, because I think when it's military especially, you're not always, but often living in military accommodation and the garrison. So when Lee was killed, it was, okay, this house isn't mine. Kai goes to a school where 99% of them are military. The staff are all married to military personnel. And then when you make that decision to move away, and again, every family is different. But for me, I felt like the time came when I felt like I needed to move back to my family. I couldn't stay there. I stayed for a year. But I just felt like the time had come. I was like, my friends aren't always going to be here. This is actually getting quite tough now to be around with welcome home banners and things. I thought I need to make a change.
You need a new chapter, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. But part of you doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
Because you're like, this is my life. And this house was where Lee lived, and his memories, I can see him in this house. And also, I think for Kai especially, that was his home. All his friends were there. It was his way of life, especially with his routine. So it was just like, we belong here, but actually I don't feel like we do belong here. I feel this is a really weird feeling to be in. It's very isolating, very alone. Even though the regiment were incredible, you were different. And I think the time came where I realised that Kai and Brooke could still know where their dad came from, hopefully still feel a part of the military community, but you don't need it on your doorstep. So we moved away, but that meant massive changes, as well as trying to get your head around losing Lee. You're changing schools, you're leaving your friends, that whole way of life, and restarting again somewhere else. And so many families, that's where the real struggle is, to be honest. And that's the proudest thing at Scotty's, which we never set out for. When we sat down, we never had it all mapped out like this. But now I think, God, it's just organically growing, that community of, okay, I'm not part of the military anymore, but actually I've got this Scotty's community that just gives me a little touch point in. And actually there's people that I can meet and understand exactly what I'm going through.
Perhaps that's been nice for you as well, because whilst you've been helping parents and children, you're also probably learning from them as well, and meeting and hearing different stories that you'll benefit from too. Tell me a bit more about what Scotty's Little Soldiers actually does, because I think you've got 3 main programs of support. I love the names: Smiles, Support, and Strides.
The Smiles program is all about fun and engagement and that community I was talking about. And that's how the charity started. So the holiday homes, we offer respite breaks for families when they're in real need for a breakaway. We own 6 holiday homes now. And by owning them, it means that you can really control that experience. You can leave a welcome pack. You can have branding up. You can just really take care of every detail. So that family can just literally rock up and their travel's been paid for. They know the beds are made upon arrival, so they can just turn up and have that, okay, I'm here and I'm at Scotty's Lodge. So it just makes you feel really like you're belonging. So that was obviously the first thing that started at Scotty's. And then as the time went on, we started to think about those times throughout the year when it's extra tough that I was talking about, those milestones. So we send gifts and vouchers on the anniversary of the parent's death, the child's birthday, Christmas, remembrance, to just remind them we're here. You don't have to contact us, but if you need us, we're here. You're not alone. And then we also offer group events. So the time came where I realised I was listening to other families. You bond and you make relationships and you learn, what do your children need? I was very against, I do not want to do group events. Oh, the last thing I want to do is sit in a room full of widows. And then I realised from listening to other parents that actually that's exactly what I needed and children need. You need to just know there's someone else going through this similar experience as you. So that is all part of the Smiles community program. And what we didn't ever realize was what that did was build a massive trust with the families. So they were contacting us more and more about other things. So about medals, pensions, general bereavement support, like my child is struggling and I don't know what to do. Families were coming to us. So then we were like, okay, this sounds like a support program. So within the support program, we offer the one-to-one bereavement support, workshops for parents and carers on different topics that are coming up quite a lot. We're like, okay, we could do a workshop on this, and online events and things, so different things. And then lots of signposting happens within that as well. But we don't just say, well, we can't do that, but we know an organisation that can. We will then ring that organisation so they don't have to retell their story. And we just try and always hold their hand a little bit and just walk with them a bit on the journey. And then what we realised was that actually this is all really good and important stuff, but we also want to empower them and help them to thrive and to know that you're not disadvantaged because you're a bereaved military child. This is actually a superpower, we say. And actually, you've got some real good skills and we're going to help you. And we're going to help you have some coping mechanisms for when these things happen, and then you can thrive. And so that's the Strider program. And that's exactly what we're talking about. That's about working with teachers, working with schools. And we offer development grants to the members as well to help them go out and start a new club, make new friends, university. And that program is very much still developing. So there's more to come on that.
That sounds like 3 full-time jobs for you. And
well, there's a lot. There's a good, strong team. We couldn't do it without the supporters and the team.
It's very nice that you talk about trying to see it as a superpower, because the impact on anybody of a loss is enormous, but the loss of a parent on a child is huge. And to try and change the narrative somehow and help them through that into a much more positive path is really important, isn't it, on that journey, Nikki?
Yeah, and I think it takes time. Every child is different. So I wish there was a one-off fix for everyone. It would make our lives a lot easier. But you've got to find different ways of working with different children and the parents and carers. What works for one won't work for another. So it's just always thinking about different ways of helping that person develop. But we're very open and honest as well. We can't turn back the clock. We can't fix this. We can't make everything better, but we can help you to be the best you can be. And we can help you understand what's going on, why it's happened. Yeah. So the team are incredible. Yeah. I take my hat off to them every day.
There are so many things that happened on that journey. Like, for example, when you said, what about the house? I don't own the house. And things that you just wouldn't even consider you'd have to go through. And one of the things that really struck me when you were chatting to Harry was the media intrusion on repatriation day. And that's something that absolutely shocked me to hear that. Tell me a bit about what happened on repatriation day and what you were facing.
Yeah, that's not a day I think about a lot. It's interesting, isn't it? And often you get asked about the funeral and stuff, but repatriation was so emotional because it was obviously Lee was coming home to the UK, and it's just not how I'd planned. I'd planned what I was going to wear, going to have my hair done, and it was just really, really hard, so emotional. And the one thing that I will always be very grateful to the regiment and to Lee's friends that were out in Afghanistan is they kept me in the loop 100% of his journey. Like, I literally had a video of the guys putting him on the plane in Afghanistan and the ceremony. I was told when it was landed, and I met so many people, and I feel quite privileged that I've been able to meet so many people that were with Lee along that final journey, which for me is something I'll always, it sounds weird to say grateful for that, but it's a really warm feeling to know that I've met the people that were with Lee for those last few times. And that day was obviously just so much emotion and you don't know what to expect. And then when the plane came, I remember there was 8 that day. So 8 lads that day that got brought home. So it was just quite horrific. It was the worst ever day. And Lee came off the plane first. I think it's to do with the Royal Tank Regiment, means he comes off first. But me and his friends were like, he's going to love coming off.
He'd have liked that, wouldn't he? I can tell even from what you've told me about Lee that he would have been high-fiving at that.
It's those little things that keep you sane at those moments, because you're like, this is the worst situation that is just horrific, but you can have those little moments. Lee came off, and then obviously we would break down. And then the next lad would come off the plane and you'd hear the next family break down. And then the next family and the next family and the next family. And it was just the most, I've never experienced anything like it was absolutely probably the thing that haunts me a little bit, if I'm totally honest, because I've never heard that before. And it was a long process as well, because they're being marched off. It's all the proper military standards, which is everything you want it to be like that, because you're also so proud. But it was really, really tough. And then they're driven through Wootton Bassett to Oxford, and Wootton Bassett had obviously become this massive thing, which was incredible, that the general public would come out and line the streets and give them a proper send-off. And I'd seen all the pictures of this, because obviously I'd seen what was going on anyway. So I assumed that we would then be driven to Wootton Bassett. I'd seen photographs of widows and family members putting roses on the cars. And then we were told that because there were 8 families, and because of the media attention around the fact that it was the worst day, or the bloodiest day, they were calling it so far, that for the security reasons, the families would have to stay on the camp and watch it on a TV screen. And again, it was just, I don't even know how to describe it, because obviously all your emotions, and you're there with 8 families. It was just quite an experience. I hated the fact that I wasn't with him in Afghanistan when he died, and I just wanted to be there with him. And after we went to Wootton Bassett, I said to my VO, I don't care, I'm going to Wootton Bassett. And he was like, well, it would have all died down now, let's go. I said, I just want to see where they drove through. I need to do this. I want to see some of the flowers that the public have left. And so, yeah, I did that.
How do you protect yourself, Nikki, when you're dealing with other families and other people's stories? If somebody's talking to you about repatriation, of course, all those conversations will still bring back a lot of memories for you. Do you manage to put a ready glow around you somehow, and maybe mentally just know how much you're helping, to be able to not have it all drain you and make you relive it all every time you're trying to help a new family?
Yeah, and I think, if I'm in all honesty, the team are really good. Maybe in the early days, I probably went that step too far, and it was really emotionally on me. Nowadays, I'm lucky that although I'm trained, I'm not doing the bereavement one-to-one support with families. And naturally, when we're at events, I will chat to other parents and young people. I work really closely with our council of young people as well. So I'm naturally always talking about bereavement, so it is always there. But right then, when I'm doing it, I'm almost another mum. It's a conversation that we're all going to get upset. We're probably all going to have a cry, and we're all going to feel a little bit drained next week. But that's when you're checking in on each other as well. So that is kind of the friendship part. And then work-wise, I don't offer the bereavement support for those reasons. It's not my job to do that. And when I do anything like this with you today, guaranteed the support team will be checking in. And I think I've learned that over the years. Like, I've got an hour after this where I'm definitely not going to walk my dog after this morning's episode.
No, you had a bit of an incident with the dog, didn't you, before we started chatting today?
But I would normally go and do something and just take time out. I've had to learn that. I've had to learn that the hard way, that it all gets too much sometimes. It's work and life is very entwined, and it means so much, and it's so personal. But I think that's why Scotty's is probably does the work it does, to be honest. But I'm now at the
so
point.
successful at what it.
Yeah,
such a massive help. How are Kai and Brooke doing, and how proud are you of your own Scotty's Little Soldiers?
I was so proud. The fact that we named it Scotty's Little Soldiers, and I always remember Mark at Health Heroes saying to me, you shouldn't call it that. You should call it Scotty's Little Heroes. And I was like, no. Because obviously soldiers, it made it sound like it was just for the army, and it's very much not. It's for tri-service. I always remember thinking no, but it was called Scotty's Little Soldiers because Lee used to call Kai his little soldier, and obviously he was known as Scotty. So whenever anyone says the name and relates them to Kai and Brooke, it always feels really special. But I am really proud. They have hard times like any other bereaved young person, and they struggle at times, but Brooke is thriving. I love seeing that she's like Lee, and she loves life, wants to do everything, wants to try everything. And I feel like that's probably the charity has also helped with that, because we have been a very busy family. We've met lots of people. We've spoke about Lee. We speak about bereavement a lot, speak about death and dying, which other families maybe shy away from sometimes, but it's our reality of like, this is our life. You know, we go to a grave and that is normal for us. There's pictures of Lee in the house. That's never going to change. I've remarried, got 2 more children, and they very much know Lee is a part of our family. So I think the fact that Kai and Brooke are very open and talk about it is a massive positive. And Kai is autistic. He's had a lot of struggles in life, in and out of hospital, and lots of other things to deal with. And he's 21 now, and he goes to a daycare centre 3 times a week, and he loves trains, and he loves West Ham United, and he's got his hobbies. And I'm just proud, because I just think everything you have faced in life and you're still smiling. And yeah, and they love the charity. They love getting involved.
And of course, they've known since they were very young that they're not alone.
Yeah.
They're really not alone. You've built up this community. I guess it's a community that one doesn't really want to grow. Yeah. I know you want to help more people, but it's kind of a funny club in a way, isn't it?
The kids always say, the children we support always say, you don't want to be in this club, but it's the best club ever.
That's a lovely, a really lovely thing to say. And how are you, Nikki? I mean, do you think in a way Scotty's Little Soldiers has also been your salvation to get you through everything?
100%. I dread to think I don't even know what I would be doing, to be honest. It keeps me busy and focused. And I know sometimes I have people say, you maybe take a step back or look after yourself. But it is just, Scotty's is my hobby. And when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. And you work all day, and then at the end of it, you know you're making a difference. And that's the best job in the world. And it's in Lee's memory. So no, I love what I do. And yeah, very, very proud of the team and the charity and the values that we have. And so, I don't know what I'd be like without Scotty's, to be honest. But it has definitely saved me. I'm sure of that.
You're an amazing lady, Nikki, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm in awe of what you've achieved and in such difficult and painful circumstances. But Prince Harry has seen firsthand the difference that you and your team are making to young people's lives. So I thought it would be nice to give him the final word.
I want to say thank you for everything you do for them.
It's a team effort.
Of course,
it's a massive team effort.
But you, right back from hearing your story right at the beginning, the way that you've navigated this is extraordinary. And there's so many people out there inside the military community and outside as well who don't know, and quite rightly, understandably, don't know how to manage these situations.
Yeah.
So wherever you have a chance to be able to share your story, it is going to help them.
You've been listening to Nikki Scott, founder of Scotty's Little Soldiers, a wonderful charity helping children and young people who've lost parents in the military. Download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify or wherever you listen to yours. I'll be back next week with another inspirational guest. Join me then.